Good morning and welcome to First Presbyterian Church. We are glad that you are with us this morning. I will endeavor to introduce myself. Most of you know who I am, but for those of you who do not, I spent roughly 28 years in semiconductor manufacturing, and then I moved from there into education for the last 10 years of my career. And I taught a variety of courses at CBTC, and they include physics and chemistry and all those courses that a lot of people don't care for too much. Even mathematics, I suppose, is one of them. But I spend most of my time now actually working for faith-based social justice organizations like Wisdom and Jonah. And soon I live south of Eau Claire with 3 cats, a bear, many deer, and birds of all varieties, and this is a great joy for us. So thank you for being with us today, virtually or in person, and thank you to all who are helping this morning. Please gather for coffee and conversation in the fellowship hall following worship. We are grateful for your support of our ministry. Giving boxes are in the narthex, and online giving is available on our website. Are there any announcements that need to be made today?
Thank you. Good morning. For those of you that don't know, I'm Rebecca Poquette. I'm an admin and deacon here. Unfortunately, our nursery room attendant is feeling ill today and has called out, so we do not have a nursery room attendant today. You are more than welcome to utilize the nursery as needed, as long as there's parent supervision, or there are activity bags in the narthex. Feel free to utilize. I also wanted to remind everyone that the office will be closed on Wednesday this week on the 15th, and that on Saturday, one of our Masterworks classes, Honey Heist, is happening. It is a lot of fun. It's a tabletop role-playing, emphasis on the role-playing. Not a lot of rules. You don't have to bring any materials. All of that will be provided. It's a lot of laughs, a lot of fun, and everyone is welcome. If you are able to let the office know, just so that we make sure that we have all of the materials, that would be great. If you wake up on Saturday and you're like, you know what, let's give it a try. Show up. It'll be fun. All are welcome.
Hello. We are having our brat fry on August 15th at Festival Foods, and I'm looking for a few more people to sign up. We're making great progress. We continue to need drivers for right now for the Nice Beso family. And that's it. So I'm going to pass around at least the, if you need help with the signing up for the driving, you can either contact me or Becky. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay, before we go to the call for worship, I want to read the thought prior to the call for worship today, because it's from one of my favorite authors, Ernest Hemingway. And I think it's important today, as it was back in 1946 when he wrote this. We have come out of the time when obedience, the acceptance of discipline, intelligent courage, and resolution were most important, into that more difficult time when it is a man's duty and a woman's duty to understand his world rather than to simply fight for it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us worship God.
first hymn is In an Age of Twisted Values, verses 1 through 4. Okay, I'd like to share a poem with you, and you can take part in this if you choose to. So anyway, it was written by a poet named Sonia Sanchez, and it's just called Poem for July, and it was written in 1994. So the lines that the congregation, we the people, can say are, we the people. So there's 2 times you can say that in the poem. The plan is to have it on the screen so you know when it's coming up, but I'll gesture and say it along with you. Then, this is a little add-on here. There's another 2 lines, and all it is it's not it will get better, it's it'll get better. So you say that twice, 2 different times in the poem, and we'll just see how it goes. I don't think it'll be on the screen, but I'll gesture, so if you remember and you want to do it, go for it. If not, will just continue. No more intoxicating ideas of racial superiority as we walk towards abundance. We will never forget the earth, the sea, the children, the people. For we the people, okay, will always be arriving, a ceremony of thunder, waking up the earth, opening our eyes to human monuments. And it'll get better. It'll get better if we, the people, work, organize, resist, come together for peace, racial, social, and sexual justice. It'll get better. It'll get better. Thank you.
We acknowledge our weakness and seek God's healing. Please join me in the unison prayer, which is a little long today, but it's a great prayer. O God of all good gifts, how generous are your provisions for us. Even before we are aware of our needs, you know what it is that we need. And provide for us out of your steadfast love nourishment for our bodies, protection from the elements, and safety. You ask in return that we respond to your love by working for justice and nourishment. You expect that we will seek righteousness as a way of our life, but so often, O God, we fail to live being mindful of others in a caring, just, and righteous way. When your love and justice do not flow through our lives, our community withers, and so do we. Forgive us, O God, in your loving care. Show us again the way to participate in your realm. I'll now read the first scripture, which is from Psalm 82. God has taken his place in the divine council. The divine council in this case is a group of elders who are leading the people. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment, and he asks a question. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the orphan. Maintain the right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk around in darkness. All of the foundations of the earth are shaken. I say, you are God's, children of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, you shall die like mortals and fall like any prince. Rise up, O God, judge the earth, for all the nations belong to you. Today, many people in our country feel that they are losing their freedoms. As I prepared for this Sunday, I had been thinking of how to insert physics and chemistry into this discussion of freedom, but I failed, luckily for you. However, I do believe strongly in the two documents that shaped our country, the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. The Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 individuals. And in it, they wanted to establish a system of government that would work for all people. They wanted to ensure that people had equal rights to freedom and opportunities. Some have argued that our country has failed in this responsibility, even after 250 years. Others claim that we're on the right path. Ultimately, You and I all have to decide for ourselves. How we decide will help shape the future of our country, and we must choose wisely. I do believe it's important to understand the historical context of these writings, these foundational writings for our country. And so I'm asking you to watch a short segment from the PBS NewsHour, which describes the foundational document, the Declaration of Independence.
On this day in 1776, the Second Continental Congress officially voted to sever political ties with Great Britain and declare itself independent. And in this week celebrating 250 years since the founding of the nation, and just ahead of Independence Day, Judy Woodruff brings us a conversation from a site synonymous with the Founding Fathers. It's part of her series, Crossroads, America at 250.
So here we are, Philadelphia, and we are standing in front of Independence Hall. I don't know about you, but I have goosebumps. It's so cool. It's so cool.
We're walking in the footsteps of history, literally, here.
It's a building that holds the nation's history within its four walls. I wanted to hear about that history from two of the best. Presidential biographer Ron Chernow, also renowned for his biography of Alexander Hamilton, and presidential historian Lindsay Chervinsky. Both have studied the Founding Fathers and the time they spent here, debating the Declaration and 11 years later, the Constitution. In both cases, creating something entirely new in the world. We sat down in the Assembly Room, the room where the United States began.
250 years ago, they would have been here debating whether or not to take that final step to actually declare independence and make the break with Great Britain official. And that was a remarkable thing to do because they knew the consequences, if they lost, would be death. And so that, I mean, gosh, that choice, what an amazing moment.
Absolutely. Just to pick up on Lindsay's point, George Washington knew for a certainty that he would be hanged if he was caught. He made the fascinating statement that during the Revolution, we were fighting with ropes around our neck. In fact, he had a secret plan. If it looked like his arrest was imminent, that he was going to flee to properties that he owned out in the Ohio country. So it's amazing. They were risking everything in doing this. And you have to realize, at the time, treason was a capital crime. That is, the punishment was death for sure, and certainly for the leadership.
By setting in motion this new system of government consent of the governed, not a king, not a dictator, were they aware how different it was from what had come before?
They were. You know, they called it this great experiment. And I think that's a really great term for it because at the time, if they looked around the world, governments were ruled by monarchies and military dictators. There really wasn't much else. So they knew they were doing something that no one alive had seen.
The Declaration of Independence, we all tend to focus on, of course, what Jefferson wrote in the preamble, you know, all men are created equal. That received very little attention at the time. For them, the significant thing, Jefferson listed, I think, was 27 different grievances against George III. This was really an indictment. This was their legal brief against George III. And I think it tells you a lot about these rebels, that they felt the need to make the case. There was almost a slight defensiveness about it. It says in the Declaration that governments should not be abolished for light or transient causes. Unless anyone accused them of light and transient causes, there was this very, very long list of grievances.
These were very well-educated men. They had a lot of experience, but they were also operating within an international political community and tradition. So there was a British tradition of petition in which there was almost a formula in which you would open and then you would have your grievances and your demands at the end. And so they were plugging the Declaration into that tradition and using it to speak to potential allies around the globe. And I think this is so important because the war had already been taking place for over a year at this point. For a domestic audience, it was sort of after the fact. They were speaking to France and Spain, trying to convince them that they were not trying to destroy all monarchies, just this one monarchy.
I want to ask you about the central figures here. George Washington was off fighting the British. He was in New York. Here were, among the central figures, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin. Why was Jefferson chosen to write the Declaration.
Well, this is where I think John Adams' brilliance really comes into play. He was, in a lot of ways, the stage manager of the early years of the Revolution. He engineered George Washington's nomination as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army the year prior, and then he engineered Jefferson's authorship of the Declaration.
It was this great lucky break for Thomas Jefferson, who was only 33, not nearly as famous as John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. And I think that John Adams and certainly Benjamin Franklin, if they had realized the significance that would be attached to this by later generations, they would have realized they really blew it letting Jefferson do it.
How would you describe the debate and disagreement over the Declaration?
It was definitely less heated than the Constitution. The most famous change that they made was to take out the grievance that King George III had basically saddled the colonies with slavery. And that was the big change that I think Jefferson lamented at that moment, but they felt would be too controversial and potentially too divisive for the various colonies.
Slavery was going to indeed be the glaring contradiction to the idea that all men are created equal, and would bedevil the country right to the present day. We're all taught in school that the major division at the Constitutional Convention was between the large states and the small states. No, said James Madison, who was sitting right in the middle of the front row here taking notes of the Constitutional Convention. The major split was between the slaveholding states of the South and the northern states.
And it wasn't just slavery that they left out, Lindsay. It was what happened to Native Americans. Women were half the population completely left out, even though they said all men are created equal. How much was that an issue inside of them?
Well, this is, a matter of great historical debate. I would argue that it matters a lot less what he was thinking at the time and much more how we read it and how successive generations have read it as almost a mission statement to try and live up to, imperfectly, of course, but trying to get a little closer with each passing generation.
But I think that the important thing, and it was kind of one of the great gifts from the founders, is that they gave us the tools, they gave us the principles that have allowed us to criticize them. We can take that line of Jefferson, all men are created, and turn it around and use it against him. But I think that they saw themselves as initiating a process that would require constant change and constant self-improvement. I think it's one of the reasons why we have endured so long. But again, they gave us the principles that we have been able to not only turn back against them, but to correct these inequities.
This has been a living document. I mean, it's a document that we live by as Americans. Yeah. It defined our system of government, but it's also been interpreted and reinterpreted, just as the Constitution certainly has been.
Yeah, I think this is so important, and Ron mentioned Washington. Everyone who was in this room for the Constitutional Convention left disappointed. They didn't get something they wanted, and everyone had to make compromises. So the Constitution is really just a hodgepodge of compromises. And Washington, when he left, he wrote a letter, and he basically said to his friend Benjamin Harrison, it's the best that could be had at the moment. That is not a declaration of triumph or success. It was, can we make a stronger foundation for the next generation to pick up our work and move forward? Yeah. And they were not afraid of failure. They were afraid of inaction.
Yeah, in fact, the preamble to the Constitution, we the people in order to create a more perfect union, it doesn't say we the people in order to create a perfect union. So already it's just kind of an approximation of where they hope to be.
So, Lindsay, you run the George Washington Library at Mount Vernon. Ron, you've written a Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of George Washington. He wasn't here, but he played a big role in what happened here.
I do think George Washington made one important contribution that we sometimes forget about, which is that the Continental Army had had a massive victory earlier that year, that they had forced the British out of Boston, and the British then came down to New York City, where, of course, Washington met them. I'm not sure that so many people would have been willing to vote for independence if the Army hadn't proven that victory was possible.
Why were we so lucky as Americans to have these men, Ron Chernow, at that particular moment? What do you think?
I've thought about this question a lot, and I think that at a time when American society we were creating constitutions, new institutions, laying down principles, forging new governments. all of the best and most creative minds were swept into the political arena. I sometimes think if an Alexander Hamilton were alive today, maybe he'd be working in Silicon Valley, maybe he'd be doing buyouts on Wall Street, maybe he'd be doing biotech research, but he would be an uncomfortable figure in our political system.
There was an expectation that if you could be a leader, there was an expectation that you would. And today, there's so many disincentives to public service. There's so much, potential vitriol or even violence. There are so many other things people of incredible intellect and talent would rather do. And so as a society, we are not encouraging the best and brightest to go into a political service role. And I think as a nation, we've lost as a result.
Which leads me to ask, if these men, these great men we're talking about, were to come back today, what would they make of what we've done with the American experiment? Ron, what do you think?
Well, they'd be very impressed by kind of the size and wealth of the country, the dynamism of the economy. But in general,
the fact that we exist.
The fact that we exist. Because what Washington thought the Constitution would last for 20 years, ditto for Hamilton, so that they would be amazed that we were still around and existing under the Constitution that they wrote. But I think that there would be vast dismay about our condition. For one thing, they had created a governmental structure where there was supposed to be three co-equal branches of government. I don't think anyone would say today that we have three functioning branches, much less co-equal branches of government. Washington, in his farewell address, had warned of the bane of factions. In other words, the bane of political parties. And we certainly are living through an era of extreme partisanship and hostility.
I think that they would be stunned that Congress, over the course of several decades, has so willingly laid down in front of the executive branch and also the judiciary. Congress is supposed to exercise a very vibrant role in oversight of the other two branches, and they have willingly given up power in a way that the founders did not see in the course of human history, because typically humans and institutions are jealous of their own authority.
Finally, why do you think the system has persisted? Why do we still have a democratic republic?
And so I think we have been incredibly fortunate to live in a nation where we are inherently choosing to be Americans, that our initial founders were choosing this identity, and with each passing generation, that choice is both required of us and gifted to us.
And I'm asking this question, Ron, at a time when many Americans feel the country hasn't lived up to its promise.
The founders bequeathed to us this great but flawed system, and we have had to keep repairing it and improving it, but they left us with the tools to do that. They left us with the institutions that have allowed us to do it, left us with the principles that have animated it. And so we're always kind of striving, always moving towards that more perfect union, which we will never achieve, but as long as we're moving in the right direction, we'll be okay.
Ron Chernow, Lindsay Chervinsky, thank you both so much for talking with us on this 250th birthday of the country and in this room.
Well, thank you for the privilege of being here.
It's been a thrill. Thank you, Judy.
So here we are, 250 years into this experiment, and we come a long way, for sure. Our country is the most powerful country in the world. It has one of the highest economies in the world. These are all good things for us, but they should be good things for all people. And we must remember that 86% of those people who signed the Declaration of Independence either owned slaves or profited from slavery. That's quite a large number. Women were only given the right to vote a century ago, and we marginalized First Nations people. We've taken over their land and used it for our purposes. But we still have the power to honor the intentions of the founders of our country. I believe our country is a great country, but it can be a lot greater. So I close with this prayer. Jesus, we ask that you forgive us for accepting laws that do not recognize the value of people. And help us to follow the guidance of Matthew 25, to be generous, to help the poor, and to include the other as equals in our communities. Amen.
Our second reading is actually a letter written to Walt Whitman. Remember Walt Whitman, poet? We all read his poetry. And this letter is written by a contemporary poet, and her name is Rosemary Watola Traumer. Dear Mr. Whitman, I want to hear America sing all those varied carols you mentioned. But it's noise now, Walt, more shouting than song, as if volume makes a leader. Any singer knows being louder just makes discord, and harmony needs constant attunement to every other singer. I want to hear America listening. I want a citizen chorus that knows our voices are only as good as our ears. I want a new song that begins with a silence that stretches from sea to shining sea. The kind of silence that holds every one of us, every part of us. And when the many parts do arise, glorious in their differences, I want to hear inside them the careful attention that tunes them to each other. I want to hear in our song the deep listening that makes even the most uncomfortable dissonance beautiful. We offer these prayers to you, O Lord. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as
Thank you, Ryan. It's beautiful. And now for the benediction. We live in difficult times, more difficult than I have ever known. But God and Jesus have shown us what we must do. We must follow the path that provides equality for all people. I pass this blessing to you and your families. Peace be with you. Amen.